We are back with season 3 of Engaged Voters, the podcast. And as y'all know, we are a few weeks away from the election, so it's game time. This season, we wanted to really get into the nitty gritty about making sure that people get out to the polls. And so today, we're talking about the criminal justice system and voting. And I have two very special guests on the show. I'm going to let them introduce themselves first.
All right, my name is Bryce Randall. I'm from Studewood, Texas.
Already.
Yeah, rest in
Period.
peace, B King.
Oh,
Yeah, that's our man's right there.
yeah.
Just to qualify myself real quick, went to Texas A&M University, majored in political science. I have a little bit of background with the criminal justice system. I spent some time doing pretrial intervention for a Class B misdemeanor. I've also have experience working on the other side with the county, with the elections department. Worked for them for about 2 years, and I have now been with Commissioner Rodney Ellis's office for a little bit over a year and a half now. And there, I specialize in voting rights, and then also justice and safety issues. So this conversation is right up my
It's
alley.
right. I see
So,
this why I brought you.
yes, I'm happy to be here. Happy to contribute. Thank you, Big T, for having me.
Already.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, fellas and ladies. My name is Anthony Coleman. I did a little time in the criminal justice system. I'm here for Tanisha today. Engaged voters. I want to elaborate a little bit on people that's not able to vote and why it's so important for voters that can vote to make a vote.
Period.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Period. So as y'all can see, we got some game hitters on here, some game changers. I'm very intentional about bringing authentic conversations about voting because people always think it's so formal and it's
Yeah.
like it's not, it's not always for us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, voting is very much so for us, and it's the reason why. So y'all, for season 3, we got our cute little cards.
Let's go. Come on,
We
with the
got
Brandon.
pillows, everything.
Come on, Brandon.
But I'm just gonna start off with, we know that the criminal justice system affects us in many ways, from housing, just all kind of
For
things.
sure.
So what are y'all thoughts about how the criminal justice system affects voting for our people? This is For Us By Us podcast, and so we want to talk about us. And either one of y'all can take it. What are y'all thoughts about how the criminal justice system affects us?
Gosh, I'm gonna defer to my man Ant first, and
Okay.
if I
Cool.
wanna add something in, I will.
I believe the criminal justice system affects us in many ways. First of all, me being from the streets, engaged with what goes on in the streets, getting caught up at a young age. I was incarcerated at a young age. So basically, when I got locked up at age 18, 19, I wasn't allowed to vote.
Wow.
So they give you a sentence big enough so when you do come home, you have so much parole to do that you still haven't voted. Basically, I started my sentence at the age of 19. I'm 53, and I have not had the opportunity to vote yet.
Oh,
So,
God, it make me emotional already.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to finishing my sentence. I have 2 more years left. I'll be
2 to go.
completely done.
And we're gonna be right there with you.
And I
Period.
can't wait. I can't wait to register to vote. You know
I
what
love
mean?
that.
Yeah. So
Y'all hear that? Like, I think y'all know I'm emotional, but I think that's real. Like, what you said is so profound. They lock us up at 17, 18. You can register to vote when you're 18, but if you get in there at 17, you couldn't register or vote when you got in there.
right.
Then by the time you get out, yeah, you out, but are you really free? Because
Mhm.
they had you on papers.
That's right.
Exactly.
And so now you can't vote. I think that's crazy, and it's very intentional why it's like that, because why of all things you take voting away?
Right.
They only care about what's really
Power
important.
in it.
It's power in it.
Yeah.
So they take that away. So I'll just say first, thank you for sharing that. It's so many. Like I said, I need to bring a couple of my uncles on here
That's
Yeah.
right.
to really talk about that, because y'all wasn't able to vote for Obama. That was my first time voting.
Right.
And to take that away from a black man especially, like, that's crazy.
Exactly.
But okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, and it just got me to thinking about, okay, well, right, black men in incarceration, right, how we're overrepresented in American prisons and jails. And basically the way it's ingrained in this country is that we can take your rights away if one thing happens: you land in prison.
Yeah.
Right? You have all of the rights of an American citizen unless you're in prison. It even says right there in our Constitution that slavery is illegal
Yeah,
unless you're in
Definitely.
prison.
unless you in prison. I tell
Right.
people that.
Yeah, so it also adds in, so not only can they take your freedoms away, but they can also take your constitutional rights away if we land you in prison, right?
Right.
And it's all intentional, right? Like when we go back to the question of why are black men overrepresented, it's because the system was built that way,
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
right? Going all the way back to slave patrols.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I remember reading about how post slavery, right, they started enacting new laws in order to be able to lock black men up more easily, right? Like
Right.
if you were unemployed, right? If you were
Yeah.
unemployed, you could get charged with what was it, vagrancy or something along those lines, and you could end up in prison. They could literally just pick you up. Oh, you loitering, hanging around,
Yeah.
you're unemployed.
Oh,
Great, we
yeah.
picking you up and
And I
selling
feel
you
like
to a
some of
chain
that is
gang.
still layered into today. Like, you know, they have ordinances in the city of Houston. We was talking about this, about you can't be like loitering, like sleeping on benches and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
They'll lock you up for that.
Mhm.
And it's like, but they have nowhere to go.
Right.
It's everywhere.
It's
Exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We won't get too deep into just because I want to keep it on voting,
Oh,
but
yeah.
the system is so complex and it's so layered, and it's like I want people to understand why voting is attached to the criminal justice system.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, AC, it's power.
It's power in voting. And you know, you got to think all the way back that the prison systems were basically made for black males,
Mhm.
young black males.
Yeah.
You know, it go deep, but you know, they take us away, like I said, at a young age. That's to take you away from the black females,
Mhm.
Yeah.
your kids,
Yeah.
Mhm.
keep you locked up for so many years, take all your rights away.
Right.
And it's supposed to be for um, rehabilitation. But in a
Mhm.
lot of instances, it make you worse because, like, I'm just gonna speak on Texas because I'm from Texas, so I don't know about a lot of the other laws. But
Yeah.
Texas is one of the worst states you can commit a felony in because you see the signs when you're on the highway, lock them up, throw away the key, don't mess with Texas. That's
Oh,
serious.
yeah.
You know, I caught a drug conviction at the age of 18. Um, Not nothing serious, no weapons, nobody hurt or nothing. And they made me fight from a 75-year sentence to a 35-year sentence, which was still too much. But once you get from 75 to 35, it's like, okay, let's go.
Right.
I'm ready to, you know what I mean? So, and then they make you do so much time on your sentence. I did 13 years on a 35-year non-aggravated sentence. I came home in 2004. I've been home for a little over 20 years now.
Wow.
Still on parole. But
Wow.
it's like this is the same case I caught when I was 19. So why am I still
Right.
being punished at 53? Like,
Wow.
you know, that's a long time. And I know people that's longer than that.
You said you've been out for 20 years.
I've been out 20 years.
Still on parole.
I'm still on parole.
It's like you locked up, but
Yeah,
walking. Like you free, but locked up.
Mhm.
that's right.
Because parole pretty much have so many of the same limitations.
It's keeping control. Still, again, I got to keep going back to young black males, not to, you know, stereotype it, but
No,
in
it's
so
real.
many ways, prison is organized slave plantation.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what
You
it
know,
is.
everybody's a number. My name don't mean nothing. Like you could write me a letter and get my name wrong, but have that number right, I'll get the letter. But if you write a letter and have one digit in that number wrong, and I'll never see that
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like they stamp the cows with the numbers and
Yeah,
shoot them on
yeah,
through. It's the
yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk about being incarcerated. And it might not apply fully to you, because of they labeled you, you know, with a felon. But did they ever talk about elections, voting, or anything inside?
Never. I mean, all they tell, like you say, you know, they take away your constitution. You lose all rights once you become a prisoner.
My Lord.
So it's
So I asked that because Bryce has actually been inside the jail through his previous job, getting people ready to vote.
okay.
And that was introduced for the first time in Harris County
Right.
in, was it 2020?
That was 2021.
2021.
Right.
So Bryce, tell us a little bit like about that process and experience.
Yeah. First off, I'm really proud of that program because it's something that was needed, right?
Right.
If you're sitting there in Harris County Jail, you're most likely there for a long-term stay. I mean, not a long-term stay, a short-term stay. And you most likely have not even been convicted yet. So you're sitting
Everybody
there.
pre-trial.
Yeah, most of the people
Most
in Harris
people.
County Jail are pre-trial, right? And those who have been convicted, they're waiting to be sent to a Texas prison, probably somewhere in Huntsville, right?
And when you say pre-trial, I want you to break it down for the people.
Yeah, yeah.
You
So
ain't been to court yet.
yeah. So when you're pre-trial, you have not been convicted. You're still waiting to go to court. You probably have been to court, or maybe your court date got reset because the DA's office is still trying to collect evidence. So you may have gone to court and they say, "Up, hold up," and then you got to come back again. So you have not been convicted of anything yet. You are still innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
So you're sitting there incarcerated with your rights taken away, but you have not been convicted of a crime.
Mm.
And those people who have not been convicted of a crime, they are eligible to vote. Whether you've been charged with a misdemeanor or a felony, you are still eligible to vote until you have actually been convicted, specifically with the felony.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah. So and so what these people don't know is that even though they're sitting in jail, they are still eligible to vote, but nobody's telling them that, right?
Right.
There's no officer or member of Harris County Sheriff's Office that's going to come to their cell or their pod and say, "Hey, by the way, did you know the election's coming up? You want us to get you registered to vote? Do you want to request a ballot by mail? Do you want your sample ballot?"
Nobody doing
Harris
that.
County Sheriff's Office ain't finna do that. So it really takes community members who actually care and give a damn to come in there and
Give
say,
awareness.
"Hey, yeah," and actually canvass and give people this information. So once we actually got it approved at Commissioner's Court, we had to go through all the legality, right? Checking with the county attorney's office to make sure that this was legal,
And
right?
which part of it? Going in there to talk to them or actually voting inside?
Actually voting inside the jail,
Yeah.
right? So to make sure that we were within all of those parameters of state law, because at the end of the day, Harris County it's generally a progressive county, but we still derive our powers from the state.
Yeah.
And y'all already
They got
know.
a lot of power,
Yeah,
people.
exactly. We live in a former slave state, so y'all already know where the politics lean.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So as far as implementation goes, all right, now that we got the approval to have a polling site at the jail, we actually have to go in and let everybody who is in here and already registered to vote know that you can actually vote. So, we had an addendum that they had to sign saying that, hey, these are your rights.
Mm-hmm.
There's an election on this day.
Mm-hmm.
You're registered to vote at this address, and you're eligible to vote. Would you like to go vote?
Mm.
Right. So
Y'all had the machines and everything.
So we
That's good.
canvassed every morning for about a week leading up to the election. We would go to the jail. We would get the new, basically, roster because people are coming in every day. People
Yeah.
are coming and going every day. So we would get the roster of who had came in from the previous day. And then we would go, if they were registered to vote, we would go to their pod, talk to them one-to-one, let them know, hey, this is what we're doing. This is who we are.
You
This
was in the
election.
jail.
Yeah,
I'm
we was
sorry to
in the
cut you
jail.
off, but,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you was going to people like,
Exactly. In they pod. Some people, like we weren't able to go into their cells, but we would go to their pods. They would come out. Right.
okay,
And we
okay.
talk to them in the pod.
Wow.
Right. So we talking to them one-on-one. And I love that experience because it's a very human moment. I
Yeah.
remember I met my first grade teacher's son in there.
What?
Yes.
Mm.
And I recognized the name because his last name was Redderell.
Wow, that ain't no common
Yeah,
last
Yeah.
name.
That's not a common last name, right? And so I recognized, I was like, hey, man, your mom, did your mom used to teach?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. And we connected. I was like, bro, your mom was my first grade teacher.
Bro, you making,
You
I
know?
ain't vote now.
Yeah, so we have very human moments. And what we got from a lot of them was like, thank you so much.
Wow.
Right? Like the fact that somebody actually cared enough to, one, make this policy, and then
Wow.
two, come and talk to us as humans one-to-one and get me on this roster to go vote. Right? Like, because being in jail is such a dehumanizing experience, right?
Yeah.
Your rights are taken away. You don't have any privacy. If you go piss, you got to do it in public.
Yeah.
If you take a shower, you're doing it in public. Like, everything is taken away from you. So it's, they were so appreciative that, one, that somebody was fighting for their rights, and two, somebody's coming to them and talk one-on-one like, hey, we're doing this for you. We're going to make sure you're taken care of on election day.
Oh,
Right? Like, hey,
That
not only are we
program is
getting you
well
set up,
needed.
I
but
was gonna say,
when we escort you to the room where the polling location is going to be on site, the same people that you talk to right now, we're gonna be there to make sure it goes smoothly.
Mm.
It's so beautiful.
I love
I
it.
want to ask AC, like, how to make you, what's your, because it's something you said, they were appreciative. People think that just because you're in jail, you don't want to vote.
I'm appreciative right now, just hearing about the program he started and what he's doing. Like, it's way overdue
Yeah.
because we didn't have awareness. We didn't have nobody to come in there and tell us, hey, you know, you still can do this. Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
you know, it's about choice.
Right.
You
Yeah.
don't have a lot to say, nah, I don't want to do it, but you're going to have a lot that's like, hey, I didn't know that, man.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me get in here and
Exactly.
register. So
Right.
that's a wonderful thing y'all doing, man. And if anything I could do to assist, I'm willing to do it.
Oh,
I
let's
love
talk
it.
then, brother.
Yeah.
Man, I love it because, and AC, you said it. You like, I can't wait to vote.
Exactly.
People think just because you have a criminal justice experience, you don't want to be you don't want to be a part of this American society.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, America has its flaws, and some days I wake up very upset.
Yeah,
But it's like I still want to use my right
Right.
to vote,
that's
Right.
right.
and the fact you taking that away from me, I haven't even been convicted of anything.
Exactly.
So thank you for sharing that. I'll ask either one of y'all, maybe you, AC, what do people who have been to jail or things, what do they think about voting?
I think you got it on both sides. You got some that been there so long, it's pretty much like I don't care. But you got some like me, like you say, that's a right that's been taken from me. I've never had the right to orchestrate or vote. So I'm excited for whenever the time comes that I'm able to vote. I want that right
Mhm.
back. I'm gonna utilize that right and I'm gonna go vote.
Period.
Amen.
Do a lot of people even know that? Because see, and Bryce and I were talking about this, and I want y'all to know,
Mhm.
in Texas, if you have a felony, you can still vote.
Mhm.
It's if you're still on paper,
Right.
you
Mm.
cannot vote. And a lot of our people do not know that.
Mhm.
We go, we come right to your spot and we
Right.
try and register voters. It was people like, nah, man, I got a felony. I'm like,
See, I didn't
but
know
are
that.
you on paper?
I
Mhm.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have 20 felonies as long
Exactly.
as you are off probation and off parole.
Mhm.
They say when you are, and I use the term off papers because we know
papers.
what that means.
Exactly.
So how long do you have to be off paper? Just
The day
That
when you
day.
off papers, that's it.
really?
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you say I'm gonna be off papers in 2026,
I'm ready.
you
Mhm.
ready. And it will be an
Straight to that
election in
tax office.
2026.
Going straight
I'm
to that
ready.
tax
It
office
will
to
be going
register.
straight and
Yeah.
get registered. People don't know that, and I want to emphasize, and I'll share this real quick. I want to emphasize you got to be off paper.
Mhm.
It's a story of a lady from Dallas, Texas, named Crystal Mason. And I was just in DC at the CBC, and we heard her speak. This lady, a mother and a grandmother.
Right.
She thought she was off paper. She was on supervised, supervised.
Oh
Parole
yeah.
visit.
Adult supervision.
Adult
Yeah.
supervi-
Supervise. Yeah.
It's not quite parole. It's not quite probation, but it is still on paper.
Right.
Right.
She registered to vote. She went to go vote at the same church that she always go vote, or at the same location. They say, "Oh, we can't find your name in the system." She not thinking. She like, okay, somebody at the place told her fill out a provisional ballot.
Right.
That's like if you don't have an ID, stuff like that. Like, okay, well, just fill out this ballot. She was told that. It was thousands of provisional ballots filled out. Hers was the only one she got charged for voting.
Really?
They sentenced her to 5 years in jail.
Wow.
She only did a little bit of time. She fought her case. In 2024, this year of March 2024, she took it all the way to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. They reversed it, full acquittal. Well, it went back to the Second Court of Appeals, but they reversed it. She free, like,
That's a good thing.
until April 2024. The Dallas Tarrant County
Right.
District Attorney said, no, we're going to appeal it again.
Mhm.
Wow.
And it's like, that make our people like, I don't even want to be
And not to
involved.
fight
Exactly.
out you, yeah. Because after
Yeah.
steady going through that, it's like,
I done
Like,
been to
yeah.
jail for 20, 30 years. You mean to tell me if I vote, it's a possibility I can get 5 more
Mhm.
years? I'm good on it.
yeah.
But that's why I tell people, man, and I ask 5 times, you off papers, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can register and it's okay. Like, registering to vote is not a crime.
Right.
It's actually voting. And Texas has passed new laws. They put it up to like 20 years if you vote and you're not supposed to.
And all that's set in place for a reason. It's to make you not want to fight or man, I'm not finna go in here and do this. These people lock me back up. So,
Exactly.
fear tactic.
Exactly. It's a fear tactic.
right.
But I'm like, if you off paper, I tell my Uncle Man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, when my Uncle Man got off paper, I'm like, hey.
Hey.
I'm like, we can do some
Hey,
things.
come
Like,
on.
and I'm gonna be the same way with you.
Yeah.
Because that's it. You don't have to see nobody anymore. You are now fully back a citizen. You always been a citizen, but like you a full citizen, however they want to call it. Yeah, it's immediate.
Because somebody told me after you get out parole, you got so many years before you can vote.
No.
Mm-mm. As soon as you walk
Misinformation.
papers,
Right.
yep.
And I understand because they want to be
Yeah.
sure, like, hey, and it's just so much floating around. And I tell people, the Crystal Mason, her parole officer, whatever you want to call it, he got on the stand. He testified. He said, I never told her that she couldn't vote. He said, I never told her that she could.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they don't tell us to tell that. They
Exactly.
give you all these rules. Come home at this time. Make sure you're at this address. Do it. They going to give you all the rules that you need.
Mm-hmm.
But when it come to voting, all of that, they don't tell you anything.
Nothing.
Right.
So that's why I'm sure your PO probably ain't never said nothing to you about voting.
Never, not once. That's a conversation. And I like I said, I've been out on parole for so long. They changed the parole officers.
Mhm.
So I didn't have so
Really?
many different parole officers. Like,
Really?
yeah, every 6 months to a year, I get a phone call. Hey, I'm your new parole officer. You need to come in and da-da-da-da. But yeah, voting is a conversation I've never had with not one of my parole officers.
Mhm.
Wow.
And
Bring
I-
it up to them. They gonna start scrambling like, well, let me check the paper. But they
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
It's immediate. When you off paper, that's it.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
And I'll give my experience when I was on pretrial intervention for my misdemeanor. It was a 12-month program, but I finished in 6. There was an election coming up, and I wanted to ask my probation officer, hey, am I still okay to vote? Like, I didn't know my rights at the time.
Wow.
I hadn't started working for the Harris County Elections Office yet, so the knowledge that I have now I didn't have then.
Yeah.
And she didn't know.
Mm.
I'm sitting here trying to track down the information. I'm calling community supervision. I think it was adult supervision, community supervision, whatever it was. I even called them, right? And let me place you on hold, right? Nobody knew. I literally had to hunt down the information myself, and that's not how it should be. It should be easily accessible, but the reason why it's not is intentional as well, too.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of money in being incarcerated and
Yeah.
going through this system. There's
Big
a lot
business.
of money to be
Big
made off of
business.
that.
That's big business, especially in
Exactly.
Texas. Like, they went to throwing them things up everywhere.
hmm
So,
So they want you to get hit on a technical
Yeah.
violation.
Yeah.
Going out of county, and you didn't know that you could leave the county.
Yeah.
Going to vote, you didn't know that you could vote. Right?
Yeah.
Like, all these things that you're not allowed to do, they want you to get caught up so you end up right back where you were.
mhm.
I hate that. I hate the system so bad. But I'll ask y'all this. What can we do or what? So I run a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
but what can we as the nonprofits or what can the county, the local government, like what can we do to fix this, right?
Right.
And I won't say fix it, like how do we address it?
Right.
Because they're going to keep their laws probably. Because if I could have it my way, I would say as soon as you out of jail, you should be able to vote.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But they put the parole. And not every state have this law. The southern states kind of, but it's some northern states. As soon as you out of jail, you can vote, even if you're on
Okay.
parole and stuff. So it's because the states have their own power.
Right.
So like, what do y'all think? Like us as nonprofits or us as whichever one or both, y'all can
Mhm.
answer that. How do we address this?
I think the pressure need to come down to the politicians in Texas because, like you say, some states, soon as you're out of jail, parole or not, you can vote. This is such a slow state because it's a rich state.
Mm.
So they gonna always drag their feet to change laws, especially when it helps to black
keep them.
community.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that should have been had years ago. Like, it don't make any sense for someone to have to wait 30 years before they can exercise their right to vote because
That's-
of a mistake they made 30 years ago.
You're not even the same person you was 30 years
Not
ago.
at all. So,
Wow.
I mean, it's a conversation that need to be had
Yeah.
with the politicians since it's a state thing. Like, because
And I want to interject and say, you right on the money.
Mhm.
So in Texas, the state have a session every other year. January, they're going to have a session. I went the year before last to the Capitol. I'm like, let me go talk to these politicians, these lawmakers. They were too busy passing laws on how do we increase the criminal consequences for people who vote, because they believe voter fraud is happening. I'm like, gee, voter fraud is not happening.
Right.
That's the kind of laws. I'm like, can y'all pass a law that say we can register to vote online? Because we still got to sign ours and mail them in.
Right.
Can y'all pass a law to say you can use your college ID? Because college students can't use their college ID. They got to get a Texas ID to vote.
Right.
But these are the things, and a lot of people, a lot of the offices that I was going to, they was like, you in the wrong office because I support you. You need to go to the office where they not supporting you. I'm like, you right. I'm going to go to that office. So you absolutely right. And it's going to take us because they don't move unless we put that pressure on them.
Right.
But they know that they supposed to, listen to the votes of the people.
Mm-hmm.
But if the people not voting or the people don't know, they like, oh, we ain't got to worry about them because they don't even know what we up here
That's
doing.
right.
Exactly.
And that's what a lot of it is. Misinformation.
Yeah.
And not being educated on the rights that you should have to vote. So
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot of policy changes that needs to be made. I mean, at the state level, we kind of already know where the state leans, right?
Mhm.
The state is probably not going to be moved on expanding voting rights when their priority is to actually limit them.
Yeah.
Right.
They
So
took away drive-through voting.
exactly.
24-hour voting.
Exactly. So their priority is taking away voting rights and trying and pretty much the very opposite of expanding access to the ballot. So where can we win, right? Where do we have power? I think it starts right here on the local level in counties that have politicians and decision makers that are a little bit more movable. So, okay, we may not be able to change state law, but what policies can we enact here to mitigate some of the harms that are being passed at the state level, right? So something that we could easily implement, right, to protect people who are justice impacted and coming out of the system when they're starting probation or parole. We could easily write into our policy, hey, when you are going over everything that this person can and cannot do, you should also be
Talk about voting.
telling them about their voting rights.
Right.
Yeah.
What rights they have and what rights they don't.
Yeah.
Right. That's an easy
Easy.
policy change that we can make at the local level.
And it's not talked about
Right.
at all. So.
Exactly. So
Are we voting? Are people voting in the jail this year?
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to Camille Gomez. She leads
Shout out
that
to you.
program over there at the elections department. Yeah, it's really great. I'll follow up with them to get a little bit more information. I if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, that they usually have it at the San Jacinto location.
Okay.
So I follow up with them to see it, and I'll share that information
Yeah,
with
share
engaged
it.
voters as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
I love it. And we like one of two. I think Chicago may have done it.
Right.
That we allow
Definitely
people to vote inside the jail.
Yeah, definitely the
That's
first
a
in the
special
state,
thing because
and maybe only the third.
there's
in
so
the
many
country.
people in there don't even know that they had it right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. As long as you not guilty yet.
Yeah. Before you used to have to like request a ballot by mail, like from an actual officer. Like
And how do you
from,
mail that back out and all that?
exactly. There's barriers, right? Because like you want a ballot by mail, now I gotta go. The officer's like, now I gotta go hunt down a ballot by mail before you go try to find you an application and give it to you, and then
That's for your address
Right.
and your zip code and all
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right.
I hope they don't throw it away when you
Right. Because we don't know what's going
yeah,
on.
you gotta hope it gets to where it needs to go
Right.
because it requires 2 stamps, right?
And
And this is information that's not readily available, right? Nobody's going to, well, at least not the sheriff's office. They're not going cell to cell and giving literature or pamphlets
no,
about
they
like, hey, this is what you need to do. Shout out to organizations like Pure Justice, Joy Davis. Shout out to
yes, hey, Joy.
you. That actually go in there and register people to vote and let them know what their rights are.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't just be community organizations doing that. That should be ingrained within the policy of our local government.
I agree. Okay, well, I will ask our last question. I ask everybody this. Why do you think voting is important? And you put in your own words. And any lasting remarks that you may have for everybody.
Ooh. You want to go first with me?
Go ahead, Bryce.
All right, because it just came to mind, and I'm a do this by telling a story as well too. So I really want to answer that question within the
Okay.
context of Black people specifically,
Okay.
and why it's important for us to vote. I think something that people always ask, right, is like what rights the people don't know that they have. But I think also important question is what rights do they don't have that they don't know about,
Mm.
right? When I found out that other states have online voter registration, same day voter registration during the early voting period, they can use their student ID, they can use their government ID, their work ID to go vote, an
Yeah.
electric bill, all the things that we can't do in Texas.
Yeah.
It
What's
made me
wrong with
realize,
Texas?
yeah.
What's
So,
wrong? Houston, we have a problem.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
what's
not only
wrong?
did it make me realize, okay, like being knowledgeable about what rights we do have, but what rights we don't,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm gonna tell a story about North Carolina. In the 90s, North Carolina, they ranked in the bottom 10 in the United States as far as voter turnout.
Mm.
And so in the 90s, the state legis in North Carolina was like, okay, our voter turnout sucks. How do we get it? How do we get more people voting in our elections?
Mm.
So they started implementing certain things within their election code, like out of counting ballots that were out of precinct. So in Harris County now, right, this is a recent change. You can vote in any voting precinct. Voting precincts are set up to be very small. It's kind of like within your local community, and you used to have to vote at the polling site within your precinct.
Right.
Now you can vote at any voting
Yeah.
precinct across the county. It'll be counted. So that was a change that they implemented. They also implemented an early voting period. Not every state has early voting,
Mm.
right? Like I thought that was everywhere.
Me too. I
Yeah.
can learn something new.
Not every state has early voting. So they implemented an early voting period. And what they saw was an increase in voter turnout when they started making it easier to access the ballot.
Yeah.
So between the 90s and 2000, they went from bottom 10, right, within the United States of their voter turnout to 37th,
Mm.
right? So that's a huge jump. And then they kept on, adding more changes, right? Like you can use your student ID,
Good.
implementing, same day voter registration during the early voting period.
Wow.
By 2012, voter turnout amongst Black people within that state had increased by about 63%.
Wow.
And this is Carolina.
Yeah,
right?
this is North Carolina.
Mm.
And then on top of that, they had jumped from 37th to 11th in voter turnout in the country,
Mm.
right? But what they didn't expect was that huge surge in Black voter turnout, right?
Mm.
They was like, we want to expand access to the ballot, but what they didn't expect was that Black voters were going to take full advantage of that.
Right.
Wow.
And so you think about 2012, right? What happened in 2012?
Barack Obama.
Exactly. Barack Obama, he got elected for a second term.
Yep.
Then on top of that, during that period from 2000 to 2012, we saw Black people turn out in higher rates than we had ever seen
Ever.
before,
Yep.
Right.
right? Actually, in that election in North Carolina, for the very first time in their state history, Black people had voted at rates higher than white people.
Mm.
So it's not lost on me why North Carolina made such a huge shift in their election codes. Next thing you know, in 2012 and 2013, they're passing all these restrictive voter ID laws.
Mm.
They're taking away everything
And
that
was
we just,
right after Shelby County.
exactly.
Minnesota.
Everything we just talked about, right? As far as same day voter registration,
They
the
took
early
them
voter
back?
period. Yeah, they took away early vote, same day voter
There
registration.
was too
They
much
said,
going
no,
on.
we went too far, right?
Too
And
much
it
going
was
on.
the
What?
same. It's the same narrative and kind of talking points that they use now, right? We're really just concerned about election security,
And election
right?
fraud.
Yeah,
and,
and election fraud. This is about election. We knew what it was about,
Yeah.
right? And what I want people to know is that it made me realize, a lot of people get discouraged with this, right? They think that their vote doesn't matter because there's all these barriers. But what it made me realize is that because all of these barriers exist, that means that my vote does matter,
Yeah.
right? These barriers wouldn't exist if my vote did
Didn't
not matter,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So with that being said, I think it really shines a light on the importance of our vote, because when Black people are given access and opportunity, right, to engage in their constitutional rights, they take full advantage of it. We saw that in the numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we do, they say, "Oh, hold on now.
Yeah.
We wanted to increase voter engagement, but
Not with
not
y'all."
amongst y'all."
Y'all going too
Right,
hard right now.
And then
Yeah.
there's the rollback, right? So for any time there is an expansion of rights, there's always going to be opponents on the other side that are trying to take those rights away. And then when we're talking about democracy, a democracy is only as strong as the people that are willing to fight for it and protect it.
Right.
All right.
So, with that being said, Black people, our vote is powerful. If it wasn't powerful, there wouldn't be so many state legislators trying to suppress it. They know that we have power. They know that when we are given opportunity to display our power to our decision makers,
Yeah.
we take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
And we have the power to swing elections.
We do.
Right. So it is time for us to utilize that power and swing our weight in these elections. Like we can either be outside the building forever yelling at power, or we can engage with this system and change our relationship to power and challenge it.
Simple. Yeah.
I'm looking at him like, we're preaching, my brother.
Hey, I feel the same way Bryce feel, man. You know, a lot of people feel like they vote don't count. I've heard people for years say, man, that stuff rigged anyway. It don't matter if I go vote. But me on the outside looking in, like I say, I guess I'm so enthusiastic about when the time comes for me to vote. I encourage people that can vote to go out and vote because your vote means everything to somebody like me that can't vote.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to utilize that right and stand on what you believe in, regardless to who you vote for,
Yeah.
Democratic,
Absolutely.
Republican, you know, make a difference, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because sitting up complaining about this like that and this like this, and you didn't even get out and vote to try to change it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate y'all.
Thank
Y'all
you
done
for having
said some very powerful things. Y'all know how I feel about voting. Hey,
Yeah.
we 10 days away from
Mhm.
early voting. And just a few days away from the election day. And the vote is powerful, especially for Black people. And they know that we think that it's not powerful. So they like, oh, well, let's ride that wave.
That's right.
But thank y'all for
Thank you
being
Right.
so real and
for
authentic.
allowing me to come.
Yes, we probably. I always
Man.
tell people, I'm like, we're gonna have to spin this back, you know, spin the block and come back and talk.
Cocktails and conversation.
Yes, cocktails and
Exactly.
conversations. We haven't. We keep it real. We meet the people right where they
Mhm.
are. So stay tuned for the rest of this season. And thank y'all for tuning in.
Go vote.
Go
Everybody,
vote.
please go vote.
Go vote.
It
Period.
matters.